This is not an ordinary moment, and this is not an ordinary message. Right now, as you are hearing these words, heaven is paying attention to what you do next. This exact moment has weight in the spiritual realm, and it is heavier than most people realize. The title you heard is not symbolic, not poetic, and not meant to scare you. It is a divine alert. God is watching what you do next. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. Now. And Archangel Michael is issuing a warning that carries urgency. This moment decides whether your blessing arrives tonight or is withdrawn without another warning. Many people miss blessings not because they are unworthy, but because they underestimate moments like this one. They assume there will always be another chance, another reminder, another sign. But some moments come only once, and when they pass, they do not announce their departure. There are times when heaven goes quiet, and there are times when heaven speaks clearly. This is one of those moments when the message is sharp, focused, and intentional. God is not distant right now. He is not observing casually. Scripture reveals that there are moments when God looks closely at the response of the heart, and this is one of them. Your next action, your next decision, even your next internal response carries spiritual consequence. Archangel Michael's warning is not coming from anger, but from protection. He stands as a guardian of divine order, and when he warns, it is because a line is being approached. On one side of that line is release. On the other side is withdrawal. And what determines which side you step into is not what you have done in the past, but what you do next. Many people believe blessings are automatic, that once promised they cannot be delayed or withdrawn. But the truth is more precise. God's promises are faithful, but participation matters. Obedience matters. Timing matters. There are blessings that are prepared, wrapped, and ready, but they require alignment in the moment of release. Tonight is not mentioned by accident. Tonight represents immediacy. It represents a narrow window where heaven has already moved ahead of you, waiting to see if your response matches what God has arranged. This is why the warning feels intense. This is why your spirit may already feel stirred. You are standing in a decision point, even if it does not look dramatic on the outside. Archangel Michael's warning is clear because delay right now is not neutral. Delay is a decision. Hesitation is a response. Ignoring this message is not passive. It is active resistance to a moment that was meant to move you forward. And the most sobering part is this. There may not be another warning. God is merciful, yes, but mercy does not always repeat itself in the same way. Sometimes mercy warns once so that obedience can be proven genuine. The withdrawal mentioned in this message is not punishment. It is consequence. It is what happens when a door is offered and not entered. Heaven does not beg. Heaven invites, then observes. This moment matters because God already knows what He has prepared for you. He sees the blessing clearly, even if you do not. He sees the outcome, the relief, the shift, the peace that was meant to arrive. But He is watching to see whether you trust Him enough to respond now. Faith is not proven by belief alone. It is proven by action when timing is critical. Right now, God is watching whether you treat this moment as ordinary or sacred. Archangel Michael is watching whether you recognize the warning as protection or dismiss it as exaggeration. What you do next signals where your heart truly stands. You may be wondering, what exactly am I supposed to do? That question itself reveals the weight of this moment. Often, God has already been speaking, through conviction, through a nudge, through something you were told to release, start, stop, or say yes to. This message is not introducing something new. It is confirming something you already sensed. That is why it feels personal. That is why it feels urgent. Heaven is aligning around a decision that has been forming quietly, and now the time for internal debate is ending. Do not misunderstand this warning as fear-driven. It is clarity-driven. Fear paralyzes, but truth sharpens. Archangel Michael does not warn to threaten. He warns to position you correctly before movement happens in the spiritual realm. When blessings are released, they move fast. When withdrawals happen, they are often silent. That is why ignoring this is dangerous. Not because God wants to withhold, but because silence can feel like peace when it is actually loss. This is why the title says, "Don't ignore this." Not because of grumlet, but because of consequence. Ignoring is a choice. Scrolling past is a response. Telling yourself you will deal with this later is an action heaven records. Right now, God is watching what you do next, not with condemnation, but with expectation. He is waiting to see if you will step into alignment or step away from the moment He set aside specifically for you. As this message continues, what will be revealed next will bring clarity to why this moment is so precise and what is truly at stake. But before moving forward, understand this clearly. This is not about perfection. It is about response. It is about whether you recognize that this exact moment is heavier than it looks. Heaven is still watching. The decision is still open. And what you do next will echo far beyond tonight. There is a test happening right now, and most people do not even realize they are in it. This is why so many blessings are delayed, redirected, or quietly missed. The test is not loud. It does not come with thunder or dramatic signs. It comes silently, wrapped in ordinary moments, hidden inside simple choices. God often tests obedience not when everything is clear, but when things feel subtle. And this is where many fail. They assume that if something were truly urgent, it would feel urgent in the natural. But spiritual urgency rarely announces itself with noise. It waits to see who is spiritually attentive. This silent test is about response, not intention, not desire, not prayers spoken in the past. It is about what you do when God prompts you quietly, when He asks you to move before you feel ready, when He nudges you to let go of something familiar, when He calls you to act without explaining every detail. The reason this test is so revealing is because it exposes where trust truly lives. Anyone can say they trust God when the outcome is guaranteed. But trust is proven when obedience is required before certainty arrives. Many people confuse delay with patience. They tell themselves they are waiting on God, when in truth, God is waiting on them. This is a dangerous place to be spiritually because it feels responsible, even wise, while actually being disobedient. The silent test is passed only by those who understand that timing is part of obedience. When God says now, later is not obedience. It is resistance dressed as caution. And resistance, even when polite, still blocks flow. What makes this moment even more critical is that the blessing connected to it is already in motion. Heaven does not prepare casually. If something is positioned to arrive tonight, it means movements have already happened behind the scenes. Doors have shifted. People have been stirred. Circumstances have aligned. But all of that can pause or reverse based on one thing, your response. This is why the warning came before the outcome. God reveals before He removes. He alerts before He withdraws. Silence comes only after response is measured. Most people fail this test because they underestimate the cost of hesitation. They think obedience must be dramatic to matter. They believe only big sins or big acts count. But in the spiritual realm, small obedience at the right time outweighs big actions taken too late. The enemy understands this, which is why distraction is his favorite tool. He does not need to convince you to say no forever, only to say not now. And not now has delayed more destinies than outright rebellion ever could. This is also why you were drawn to this message. Not by accident. Not by curiosity alone. Something in your spirit recognized that this moment was different. That recognition is part of the test. What you do with it matters. Will you dismiss it as coincidence? Will you let the feeling fade? Or will you lean in and respond with intention? Heaven is not measuring perfection. It is measuring posture. Are you willing? Are you attentive? Are you responsive when it counts? Right here, pause for a second and reflect honestly. Have you been putting off something you know God asked you to do? Have you been waiting for confirmation when confirmation has already come? Have you been praying for clarity while avoiding action? These are not questions of condemnation. They are mirrors. The silent test reveals itself through honest reflection. And when you see it clearly, you still have a choice. This is also the moment where alignment can deepen. If this message is resonating, if you feel that inner confirmation that something important is being spoken to you, engage with it. Do not treat this like background noise. Take a second to acknowledge it. You can do that right now by interacting, by liking this message, by sharing it with someone who may also be standing at a crossroads, by subscribing so you stay connected to messages that sharpen your discernment. Even leaving a comment is more than engagement. It is a declaration that you are present, aware, and responding. Small actions, when done intentionally, signal readiness in the spiritual realm. The reason engagement matters here is not outerific, it is spiritual. When you respond outwardly, you are aligning inwardly. You are choosing not to be passive. And passivity is the enemy of timing. God responds to movement. Scripture consistently shows that when people moved first in obedience, provision followed. The water parted after the stead. A miracle came after the command was followed. Rarely before. Understand this clearly. God is not trying to trick you. He is not hiding the blessing out of cruelty. He is refining readiness. Blessings carry responsibility, and responsibility requires responsiveness. This silent test is proof that God trusts you enough to offer you a moment that matters. But trust is mutual. He is watching to see if you trust Him back, not just with words but with action. As this unfolds, what comes next will reveal why this warning is so specific and why withdrawal, if it happens, is not random. There is a spiritual order at work that most people never see. Once you understand it, everything about this moment will make sense. And more importantly, you will know exactly how to respond. This is the warning before withdrawal, and it is one of the most merciful yet misunderstood moments in the spiritual journey. When God allows a warning to surface, it is not because He is eager to remove a blessing, but because He is giving space for correction before consequence. Many people only recognize loss after it has happened. Very few recognize the warning while it is still speaking. That is why this moment feels weighty. You are not hearing this after something is gone. You are hearing this while the outcome is still undecided. In the spiritual realm, warnings are rare and precise. They are not repeated endlessly. They are issued when a threshold is being approached. Archangel Michael stands as a guardian of divine order, and when he warns, it is because alignment is required immediately. This is not about fear, it is about structure. Heaven operates with order, timing, and boundaries. When a warning is released, it means a boundary is near. Cross it in obedience, and protection surrounds you. Cross it in hesitation, and covering can lift without noise. Withdrawal does not always look dramatic. This is what makes it so dangerous. It often looks like delay that never resolves. It feels like doors that stop responding. It manifests as prayers that once felt alive suddenly feeling unanswered. Not because God stopped loving you, but because a moment of response was bypassed. God does not chase disobedience. He honors free will, even when it leads away from what He prepared. This is why hesitation carries such spiritual weight right now. You may think you are simply waiting for more clarity, but heaven is watching whether clarity has already been given. God often speaks once clearly, then watches. The watching is not passive. It is intentional. It is evaluative. Your response reveals whether you value His timing or your comfort more. And comfort has delayed more breakthroughs than hardship ever has. There are moments when God tests the heart by offering a warning instead of an outcome. The warning itself is grace. It is heaven saying, pay attention. Adjust now. But grace must be received to remain grace. When ignored, it does not turn into punishment. It simply expires. This is the part many people do not understand. Blessings do not always leave with announcement. They simply stop moving forward. You may feel tension in your spirit as you hear this. Attention is not condemnation. It is awareness. It is the internal signal that something matters. The enemy wants you to dismiss that feeling, to soothe it with distraction or delay. But the Spirit uses that tension to call you into alignment. This is the dividing line. Will you lean into the discomfort long enough to respond, or will you numb it and move on? Archangel Michael's warning is connected to protection. He does not guard what is ignored. He defends what is aligned. When obedience is activated, protection intensifies. When obedience is delayed, protection loosens, not out of anger, but out of respect for choice. God will not force alignment. He will only invite it, warn when necessary, and then allow the outcome to follow the response. This is why there may not be another warning. Not because God is harsh, but because repeated warnings remove the seriousness of obedience. Heaven values integrity. A warning is meant to awaken urgency, not create comfort. If warnings were endless, obedience would become optional. And God does not operate in optional truth. Right now, you are being given what many never receive, awareness before consequence. This is a sacred space. The blessing is still within reach. The withdrawal is not final, but the moment is closing. What you do next matters more than what you have done before. One aligned response can override seasons of delay. One act of obedience can reopen flow that seems stuck. Hold this carefully. God wants to bless you. Withdrawal is not His desire. Alignment is. And alignment is still possible right now. But this window will not remain open forever. There is something coming next in this message that will reveal exactly why this moment is so precise and why your response cannot be postponed. Hold on. What comes next changes everything. Type "I am ready" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 913 is now activated. Right now, as this warning settles in your spirit, I feel led to speak directly to those whose hearts are burning to help others hear what heaven is saying. When you give through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are not supporting a channel. You are planting seed into soil where lost souls are being awakened. I hear the Lord saying, as you sow light, I will cause rivers of revelation to flow to those sitting in darkness. I am personally inviting you to take part in this work, because obedience is not only about what you receive, but about what you release. This message is reaching people at the edge of divine decisions, and your giving keeps that warning alive across the earth. Do not delay this act. Respond prophetically now. Give through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code on the screen. And as you do, may God open the heavens over your house and multiply your harvest without delay. Heaven's clock does not move the way human time moves, and this misunderstanding is one of the greatest reasons people miss divine moments. On earth, time feels flexible. You can postpone conversations, delay decisions, and circle back when it feels convenient. But in the spiritual realm, timing is precise. When God appoints a moment, it carries an expiration that is rarely announced. This is why so many people look back and say, "I almost obeyed," or "I was about to move," not realizing that almost is not a spiritual language heaven responds to. God's timing is not emotional, it is intentional. He does not release blessings randomly or impulsively. Every appointed moment is connected to alignment across multiple layers you cannot see. People, circumstances, protections, and even resistance are all factored in. When the timing is right, everything converges. When the timing passes, that convergence disperses. This is why heaven's clock matters more than your readiness. God does not wait for you to feel comfortable. He waits for alignment to be complete. Many people assume that if a blessing is meant for them, it will wait until they are ready. But Scripture and spiritual patterns reveal a different truth. Blessings move when heaven moves. If you move with them, you receive. If you hesitate, they continue without you. This does not mean God replaces you easily or casually. It means He honors order. Divine order does not bend to human delay. When God says now, it is because conditions are optimal in ways you cannot measure. Resistance may be low. Protection may be high. Opportunity may be narrow. What looks like an ordinary moment to you may be the exact intersection where multiple spiritual factors align. This is why obedience delayed can become obedience denied. Not because God changes His mind, but because the moment changes. Heaven's clock also explains why some doors close quietly. There is no dramatic slam, no clear announcement. Just a sense that something once available is no longer accessible. People often misinterpret this as a season of waiting, when in reality it is a season that has already passed. And because heaven does not operate in regret, it does not rewind time to soothe missed opportunities. It simply moves forward. This is where the danger of later becomes clear. Later feels safe. Later feels responsible. Later feels wise. But later is a human construct, not a divine one. God does not operate in vague futures. He operates in appointed moments. When those moments are honored, blessing flows naturally. When they are ignored, resistance increases, not because God is opposing you, but because you are now out of alignment with timing. Think about how often people in Scripture were instructed to move immediately. Step into the water. Go now. Leave at once. Speak now. Delay was never neutral. Delay always had consequence. Sometimes the consequence was loss. Sometimes it was wandering. Sometimes it was extended hardship that never needed to happen. Timing was the difference between promise fulfilled and promise postponed. Heaven's clock also explains why urgency feels uncomfortable. Urgency disrupts routine. It challenges control. It forces trust. That discomfort is often mistaken for fear, when in reality it is exposure. Urgent moments expose what we truly rely on: logic, security, approval, or God. This is why urgent obedience produces such powerful results. It bypasses overthinking and activates trust. Right now, you are not being rushed. You are being aligned. There is a difference. Rushing is chaotic. Alignment is focused. The urgency you feel is not pressure from heaven. It is precision. It is God narrowing your attention to what matters most so nothing interferes with response. Heaven's clock is not ticking loudly, but it is moving decisively. This also means that missed moments are not always revisited in the same form. God is creative, but timing is specific. What could have been released easily in one moment may require far more resistance, struggle, or waiting in another. This is not punishment. It is reality. Timing determines ease. Alignment determines flow. Understanding heaven's clock brings clarity, not fear. It helps you recognize why this moment matters so much, why the warning was issued before the outcome, why hesitation feels heavier than usual. You are not imagining this weight. It is the weight of timing, and timing does not linger for indecision. There is still space to respond. That is why you are hearing this now. But space does not mean endless time. Heaven is orderly. When a moment completes its purpose, it closes. The blessing connected to it does not disappear. It simply waits for another appointed time, which may look very different from what was prepared now. As this message continues, what will unfold next is the nature of the blessing itself and why it was scheduled for tonight. Understanding that will sharpen your discernment even further and remove confusion about what is being asked of you. Heaven's clock is still open. The question is whether you will move while alignment is still active. There is a blessing prepared for tonight, and it is important to understand what that truly means, because many people misunderstand how blessings arrive. When heaven says tonight, it is not always speaking only about a visible outcome appearing before you sleep. It is speaking about movement. It is speaking about authorization. It is speaking about release in the spiritual realm that begins a chain reaction. Some blessings arrive suddenly in form, but most arrive suddenly in permission. And once permission is granted, nothing can stop what has been released. This blessing was not decided today. It has been forming over time. Conversations you never heard, resistance you were protected from, delays that were actually shields. All of these were part of preparation. God does not rush blessings. He prepares them thoroughly. So if something is scheduled for tonight, it means the preparation is complete. The only remaining variable is alignment, not effort, not striving. Alignment. Many people assume blessings are rewards for good behavior, but blessings are more accurately responses to positioning. When you are positioned correctly, blessings flow naturally. When you are misaligned, even good intentions cannot force them. Tonight represents a moment when your position and God's preparation are meant to meet. That meeting point is sacred. It is rare, and it is powerful. The blessing prepared for tonight is connected to clarity. It may bring relief. It may bring peace. It may bring an opening where there was pressure. It may bring confirmation where there was confusion. Not all blessings look like dramatic change at first glance. Some blessings are internal shifts that change how everything else unfolds. A calm where there was anxiety. A decision where there was paralysis. A release where there was resistance. These are not small outcomes. They are foundations. One reason people miss blessings like this is because they expect fireworks instead of flow. They look for signs instead of alignment. They want certainty instead of trust. But heaven often moves quietly when it is doing something precise. Loud miracles draw attention. Quiet blessings build destiny. And tonight's blessing is about building, not just impressing. This blessing is also protected. That is why obedience matters so much right now. Protected blessings require correct timing. They cannot be released early, and they cannot be released late without exposure. God releases blessings when protection is strongest and resistance is manageable. If alignment slips, protection adjusts. This is not to scare you. It is to show you how intentional this moment is. You may be tempted to think, if it's meant for me, it will happen anyway. But blessings are not objects dropped from the sky. They are exchanges. God releases, you receive. Receiving requires openness. It requires response. It requires trust that what God is doing makes sense even if you do not see the full picture yet. The blessing prepared for tonight is not random. It is connected to prayers you may have stopped mentioning out loud. It is connected to desires you buried because waiting felt safer than hoping. God has not forgotten those prayers. He has been guarding them. And now, one of them is ready to move from guarded to given. But gifts must be accepted. They cannot be forced into closed hands. This is why your internal posture matters more than your external circumstances. You may still be in the same place physically tonight, but spiritually, something can shift completely. Once that shift happens, circumstances follow. Heaven always moves first. Earth responds later. People who understand this do not dismiss moments like this. They treat them with reverence. Another reason tonight matters is because blessings do not always return in the same form if missed. God is generous, but timing shapes form. What could have arrived gently may arrive later through pressure. What could have come with ease may require endurance. Again, this is not punishment. It is the reality of alignment. Ease is a product of timing, not worthiness. Right now, the blessing prepared for tonight is still within reach. Nothing has been withdrawn yet. Nothing hath been cancelled. The warning exists precisely because the blessing exists. If there were nothing prepared, there would be no urgency. The fact that heaven is watching your response proves that something valuable is on the line. You do not need to panic. You do not need to overanalyze. You need to be willing. Willingness is powerful. Willingness opens doors faster than understanding ever could. God does not require you to see the whole path, only to take the step in front of you. As this message moves forward, the next part will reveal how simple actions trigger complex spiritual releases, and why what seems small to you can activate what feels impossible. A blessing is ready. Heaven is prepared, and the moment is still open. What remains is response. The release of what God has prepared is often triggered by something that looks small on the surface. This is where many people stumble, because they expect great outcomes to require great effort. But in the spiritual realm, effort is not the currency, obedience is. The choice that triggers release is rarely dramatic. It is usually simple, specific, and uncomfortable enough to test sincerity. God watches for response, not intensity. He watches for alignment, not explanation. Small actions carry massive spiritual weight when they are taken at the right time. Speaking a word you have been avoiding. Letting go of something you have been holding tightly. Taking a step without reassurance. Saying yes when fear offers convincing reasons to say no. These moments do not look impressive to the world, but they move heaven deeply. This is because they demonstrate trust, and trust is what releases authority. Many people believe God is waiting for them to feel brave, but God is waiting for them to act while they still feel uncertain. Courage in the kingdom is not the absence of fear. It is obedience in the presence of it. When you move while fear is still talking, you prove that fear does not govern you. That act alone shifts spiritual authority in your favor. This is why intention is not enough. Intention stays internal. Obedience becomes external. Heaven responds to what is enacted, not what is imagined. You can intend to forgive, intend to obey, intend to step forward, but until intention becomes action, alignment does not complete. And alignment is what activates release. The choice that triggers release is often inconvenient. It interrupts routine. It challenges logic. It may even contradict advice from people who mean well but do not see what God sees. This is not accidental. God uses inconvenience to refine dependence. When obedience costs something, it proves that God is trusted above comfort. That trust opens doors that effort never could. You may be thinking that your situation feels too complex for a simple action to change anything. But complexity on earth does not limit simplicity in heaven. God is not overwhelmed by layers. He cuts through them with precision. One obedient response can realign multiple layers at once. That is the power of obedience in timing. This is also why God watches response more than reasoning. Reasoning can justify delay. Response reveals surrender. God already understands your fears, your concerns, your questions. What He is watching is whether those things lead you or whether He does. Leadership determines outcome. When fear leads, delay follows. When God leads, movement begins. There is a moment when faith and fear stand side by side, both asking for agreement. Faith asks you to trust what you cannot yet see. Fear asks you to protect what you already have. The choice between them often feels subtle, but its consequences are not. Faith moves you forward. Fear keeps you stationary. And heaven does not release into stagnation. The action that triggers release may feel almost too small to matter. That is intentional. God does not want the glory confused with human effort. When small obedience releases big outcomes, it becomes clear who moved first. God is not looking for grand gestures. He is looking for surrendered ones. Another important truth is this: obedience is not about outcome control. When you obey, you are not manipulating God into blessing you. You are positioning yourself under His order. Order produces flow. Flow produces blessing. This is why obedience feels freeing after it is done, even if it felt heavy before. Alignment removes internal resistance. You may not feel ready when the moment comes. Readiness is not a requirement. Availability is. God does not ask if you feel ready. He asks if you are willing. Willingness allows Him to supply what you lack. Readiness would place the burden on you. Willingness places it on Him. Right now, God is watching whether you will take the step that aligns you fully. Not the step that makes sense to everyone else. Not the step that guarantees immediate comfort. The step that requires trust. That step is the trigger. Once it is taken, release begins moving, often faster than expected. This is where many people look back and say, everything changed when I finally did that one thing. That one conversation. That one decision. That one act of obedience they had delayed. The action itself was not magical. The timing was. Heaven responds to timing with acceleration. Do not underestimate the power of a single aligned action. You are not being asked to figure everything out. You are being asked to move where God has already pointed. That movement completes alignment. And when alignment completes, release follows naturally. As this unfolds, the next part will reveal what happens when the choice is avoided, and why withdrawal does not come with chaos, but with silence. Understanding that will sharpen your discernment even further and protect you from mistaking stillness for peace. The choice is still in front of you, and it still carries the power to release what has been prepared. Withdrawal without another warning is one of the most sobering realities in the spiritual realm, not because it is cruel, but because it is quiet. Most people expect withdrawal to feel dramatic, obvious, or immediate. They imagine something being taken away suddenly or a clear sign that something has gone wrong. But that is rarely how it happens. When alignment is missed, heaven does not always announce it. Instead, movement simply stops. What once felt close begins to feel distant. What once flowed freely begins to resist. And many people mistake this silence for temporary pause, unaware that a window has already closed. God does not warn endlessly. Repeated warnings weaken urgency. If every missed moment came with another alert, obedience would lose its meaning. This is why the first warning carries such weight. It is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you. Once that warning is issued, heaven watches. If response follows, flow continues. If hesitation replaces response, silence begins. And silence is not always peace. Sometimes it is absence. Withdrawal is not God turning his back on you. It is God honoring your choice to not move when alignment required it. Free will is sacred to him. He will not override it to force a blessing into your life. Blessings require cooperation. When cooperation is withheld, God does not argue. He allows consequences to unfold naturally. This is why withdrawal often feels confusing rather than painful at first. Nothing obvious seems wrong, but nothing seems to move forward either. One of the clearest signs of withdrawal is stagnation. Not chaos, not destruction. Stagnation. You may still be praying, still believing, still hoping, but there is no forward motion. Doors remain closed without explanation. Opportunities dissolve quietly. Motivation fades. And because nothing dramatic happens, people often assume they are simply in a waiting season. But waiting seasons still carry movement. Withdrawal carries stillness. Another sign is increased effort with decreased return. You find yourself working harder for outcomes that once came with ease. You push, strive, and analyze, but the results do not match the energy. This is not because you are doing something wrong. It is because alignment has shifted. Effort cannot replace timing. Once a moment passes, effort increases but flow decreases. Withdrawal also affects clarity. Decisions that once felt guided begin to feel foggy. Your action that once felt strong becomes uncertain. This is not because God has become distant, but because obedience sharpens clarity and hesitation dulls it. When you respond to God's prompting, clarity increases. When you delay, confusion grows. This is not punishment. It is cause and effect. The most dangerous part of withdrawal is how easily it can be rationalized. People tell themselves they are being patient, cautious, or wise. They spiritualize delay and call it discernment. But true discernment brings peace and direction, not prolonged uncertainty. When discernment is real, it leads somewhere. When delay is disguised, it leads nowhere. God's silence after a warning is not abandonment. It is respect. He respects your decision enough to not interfere with it. This is why there may not be another warning. Another warning would imply that your response did not matter the first time. But it did. It mattered deeply. Heaven does not issue warnings casually. When one is given, it is because something meaningful is at stake. It is important to understand that withdrawal does not mean the end of God's plan for you. It means the end of a specific moment within that plan. God can create new paths, but new paths often involve new processes, new waiting, and new challenges. What could have happened quickly may take longer. What could have arrived gently may come through endurance, Again, this is not punishment. It is the reality of timing. Many people only recognize withdrawal in hindsight. They look back and realize there was a moment when everything felt poised to change, when clarity was present, when urgency was felt, and they chose comfort instead. That realization can be painful, but it is also instructive. It teaches the value of response. It teaches the cost of hesitation. Right now, you are not in hindsight. You are in the moment itself. That is why this message is still speaking. That is why awareness is still present. Withdrawal has not finalized. Silence has not settled. The warning exists because response is still possible. But that will not remain true indefinitely. Do not assume that no news is good news in the spiritual realm. Sometimes no news means the moment has passed quietly. That is why responsiveness matters so much now. God is not looking for panic. He is looking for humility. Humility says, I may not fully understand, but I will trust you enough to move. If you have felt a heaviness listening to this, that is not fear. That is discernment recognizing significance. Fear paralyzes. Discernment calls you forward. There is still time to respond, but there is not time to ignore. This is the space where wisdom speaks softly but clearly. The next part will reveal how protection shifts while alignment returns, and why even delayed obedience can still restore momentum if acted on in time. Silence does not have to be your outcome. Withdrawal does not have to finalize. But the response must be real, and it must be timely. Heaven is still watching what you do next. When alignment is restored, protection shifts immediately, and this is where many people misunderstand how spiritual covering works. Protection is not static. It is responsive. It intensifies when obedience is activated and loosens when hesitation persists. This is not because God is inconsistent, but because protection follows order. When you step into alignment, you step back under covering that was already assigned to you. And standing at the center of that covering is Archangel Michael, not as a distant symbol, but as an active enforcer of divine authority. Archangel Michael does not intervene randomly. He intervenes where alignment gives him legal ground. This is a crucial truth. In the spiritual realm, authority operates through permission. When you obey God, you grant permission for protection to advance. When you delay, that permission is restricted. This is why obedience is never just about blessing. It is also about defense. Many attacks gain access not through sin but through hesitation. When alignment returns, resistance weakens. This does not mean challenges vanish instantly, but it means they lose leverage. What once felt heavy begins to feel manageable. What once felt confusing begins to clarify. This is the shift that happens when protection realigns. You may not see an angel with your eyes, but you will feel the effect. Peace where there was pressure, confidence where there was doubt, direction where there was fog. This is why Archangel Michael stands ready, not chasing, not forcing, but waiting. Waiting for alignment. Waiting for agreement. Waiting for the moment when your response matches God's instruction. When that happens, intervention becomes lawful. Defense activates. And movement resumes. Many people think spiritual warfare looks like constant struggle, but true spiritual warfare is often about positioning. When you are positioned correctly, warfare becomes minimal. When you are misaligned, resistance multiplies. This is why the enemy fights so hard to keep people distracted, delayed, or uncertain. He knows that once alignment is restored, his influence weakens dramatically. Right now, the spiritual realm is not neutral around you. Forces are attentive. This is not to create fear, but awareness. Awareness empowers response. When you respond correctly, protection does not need to fight as hard because authority is already established. Obedience establishes authority faster than prayer alone ever could. There is also something important to understand about delayed obedience. Delayed obedience, when corrected in time, still carries power. God is merciful in that way. If alignment is restored before the window closes completely, protection can re-engage fully. This is why this moment still matters so much. This is why the warning came before silence. Heaven prefers restoration over withdrawal. You may be feeling a renewed sense of urgency now, not panic, but clarity. That clarity is alignment beginning to form. When clarity forms, courage follows. Courage does not mean fear disappears. It means fear no longer decides. And when fear stops deciding, obedience becomes possible. This is the turning point many people miss. They wait to feel fearless before acting. But protection activates when you act while fear is still present. Archangel Michael does not wait for you to feel strong. He responds when you choose alignment over comfort. That choice signals heaven that you are ready to be defended. Do not underestimate how quickly things can shift once alignment returns. What felt blocked for months can move in days. What felt heavy can lift suddenly. This is not because circumstances change, but because authority did. Authority flows from alignment, and alignment is still within reach. As you listen, understand this. Protection is not withdrawn to punish. It is adjusted to reflect position. Step back into alignment, and protection follows. This is why obedience is always worth it, even when delayed. It restores covering. It restores clarity. It restores flow. There is something else coming next in this message that many people overlook, something that reveals what God is watching right now in real time. When you hear it, you will understand why this moment is so exact and why your response carries immediate weight. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed. Type "I return to alignment" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 642 is now activated. As protection realigns and heaven responds to obedience, I feel led to speak to those who sense they are called to help carry this warning further. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are pouring oil into a lamp that is lighting paths for souls standing at critical crossroads. The Lord is saying, "Those who sow into my voice will never lack my covering." I am directly inviting you to act now, because this is not charity. It is prophetic participation. Your obedience in giving strengthens this assignment and pushes this message into places where discernment is desperately needed. Do not let this moment pass without response. Give now through the PayPal link in the description or the PayPal QR code on the screen, and may God surround you with favor and protection as you help others hear His call. Right now, God is watching more than just your circumstances. He is watching your response, not your history, not your intentions, not the explanations you give yourself. He is watching what you do in this exact season, under this specific instruction, with this level of awareness. Many people assume God watches outcomes, but Scripture and spiritual patterns reveal that God watches posture first. Your posture toward obedience tells Him everything He needs to know about where you are aligned. God is watching your thoughts, not in a condemning way, but in a revealing way. Are your thoughts leaning toward trust or toward justification? Are you convincing yourself why waiting makes sense, or are you allowing faith to challenge your comfort? Thoughts matter because they shape decisions. Decisions shape movement, and movement determines whether blessings advance or stall. God is also watching your reactions. How do you respond when you feel pressure? When urgency appears, when something challenges your routine or your sense of control, reactions reveal leadership. They show whether fear, logic, or faith is leading you. God does not demand emotional perfection, but He does observe who you allow to lead your responses. The leader determines the destination. He is watching how you treat instruction. Do you weigh it carefully and then act, or do you weigh it endlessly until momentum disappears? Overanalysis is often disguised as wisdom, but in critical moments, it becomes resistance. God's instructions are not meant to be endlessly examined. They are meant to be followed. When instruction is clear, action is the response heaven recognizes. God is also watching what you prioritize in this moment. Your distractions easily pull you away from what you know matters. Your temporary comforts override eternal direction. Priorities are revealed not by what you say matters, but by what receives your time and attention when decisions are required. This moment is not competing with many things. It is revealing what ranks highest. Another thing God is watching is your willingness to respond publicly, not just privately. Faith that stays hidden often stays inactive. This is why approved responses matter. When you acknowledge what God is doing openly, you reinforce alignment internally. Silence can sometimes signal uncertainty, but response signals agreement. Heaven responds to agreement. This is why engagement matters right now. If this message is speaking to you, do not keep it internal. Like this message as an act of agreement. Share it with someone who may be standing in the same kind of moment. Subscribe so you remain connected to messages that sharpen your discernment in critical seasons. And leave a comment declaring your response. These are not small actions. They are visible responses that signal readiness and alignment. What you engage with shapes what you receive. God is watching how quickly you respond. Speed reveals trust. When you trust God deeply, you move quickly because you are not waiting for proof. You trust His character enough to act. Delay often reveals a desire for control rather than confirmation. God already confirmed the moment by bringing this message to you. What remains is response. He is also watching whether you treat this moment as optional or sacred. Up in a momentary to postponed. Sacred moments are honored immediately. Sacred does not mean dramatic. It means set apart. When you recognize a moment as sacred, you treat it differently. You give it weight. You respond with intention. That intention is visible in the spiritual realm. God is watching whether you are trying to negotiate obedience. Partial obedience is still resistance. God does not respond to halfway alignment. He responds to surrender. Surrender does not mean you understand everything. It means you trust enough to move anyway. But trust is what unlocks flow. Right now, God is not asking you to fix everything. He is asking you to respond to one thing. One instruction. One nudge. One step. This is how alignment works. It is built step by step, not lead by lead. But the first step is the most important because it sets direction. You may feel exposed hearing this, but exposure is not condemnation. It is clarity. Clarity empowers choice. And choice is what heaven is watching. You are not being judged. You are being observed for readiness. God does not observe to reject. He observes to release. There is also a reason this moment feels personal. God deals with people individually, not generically. He knows exactly where you are. He knows exactly what He asked of you. And He knows exactly what is at stake. This message is not broad, it is targeted. And targeted messages require targeted responses. As this unfolds, what comes next will reveal why this moment is narrow, and why delay feels heavier now than it did before. There is a reason urgency has increased. There is a reason clarity is sharpening. And there is a reason this decision cannot be postponed without consequence. Stay with this, because the next revelation will help you recognize the window you are standing in, and why it will not stay open forever. This moment is narrow, and that is what makes it powerful. Divine windows are not wide open forever. They are precise openings in time where movement is possible with minimal resistance. When heaven opens a window, it is because conditions have aligned perfectly. When that window closes, it is not because God is unwilling, but because the conditions have shifted. Understanding this truth changes how you treat moments like the one you are standing in now. The narrow window of obedience is often misunderstood as pressure, but it is actually mercy. It is God saying, "Now is the time when this can happen cleanly." Cleanly means without unnecessary struggle, without prolonged resistance, without added complications. When obedience happens inside the window, outcomes flow with a grace that cannot be manufactured later. When obedience is delayed until after the window closes, the same outcome may still be possible, but the path becomes harder. Many people assume that if they miss one window, another identical one will open. But spiritual windows are not copies of each other. Each one is unique and shaped by specific timing, specific people, and specific assignments. When one closes, the next will not look the same. That is why hindsight often brings regret, not because people failed completely, but because they realize they missed the easiest route. This narrow window exists because heaven values precision. God does not operate in chaos or approximation. He operates in exactness. When he sets a moment apart, it is because something can be accomplished in that moment that cannot be accomplished the same way later. This is why obedience tied to timing carries such weight. Obedience outside the window still honors God, but it does not carry the same acceleration. Spiritual procrastination is especially dangerous here. Procrastination feels harmless because it is quiet. It does not openly reject God. It simply postpones response. Momentum is fragile in the spiritual realm. It must be protected. Once momentum is lost, it takes far more energy to rebuild than it would have taken to maintain. This is why the cost of waiting feels heavier now than it did before. Earlier delays may not have carried immediate consequence because the window was not yet fully open. But once the window opens, delay becomes costly. Not emotionally, spiritually. The longer the delay, the more alignment begins to drift. Drift is subtle, but it is powerful. It does not pull you away suddenly. It slowly moves you off-center. The narrowness of this window also explains why urgency feels sharp rather than gentle. Gentle nudges often come before the window opens. Sharp clarity comes when the window is active. The sharpness is not pressure from God. It is precision from heaven. It is the clarity that says, "This is the moment." Do not treat it lightly. The reason this window matters is because of what is on the other side of it. Obedience here does not just release a single outcome. It sets direction. Direction determines future opportunities. When you move correctly in one window, you position yourself closer to the next one. When you miss a window, you may find yourself needing to realign before another opens. Alignment takes time. Time is what this window is trying to save you. Many people do not realize that blessings are connected. One leads to another. Momentum compounds. When you obey at the right time, you do not just receive what is in front of you. You prepare yourself for what comes next. But when you hesitate, you interrupt that sequence. The sequence does not break permanently, but it pauses, and pauses cost time. This is why God is so attentive to response right now. He is not focused only on the immediate blessing. He is focused on the path ahead. He sees how this moment connects to future movement. He knows that what you choose now will echo forward. That echo can be one of alignment or one of delay. The narrow window also demands honesty. You cannot pretend this moment does not matter. Your spirit knows it does. The discomfort you may feel is not fear. It is awareness. Awareness always increases before important decisions. It opens perception. It removes excuses. It brings clarity. What you do with that clarity determines outcome. It is important to understand that obedience within this window does not require perfection. It requires sincerity. God is not looking for flawless execution. He is looking for willing response. Willingness is enough to step through the window. God supplies what you lack once you move. As this window remains open, there is still opportunity. But opportunity does not linger indefinitely. It responds to movement. When movement happens, the window fulfills its purpose. When movement does not happen, the window closes quietly. Not with anger, not with punishment, simply with completion. The next part will reveal how this warning transforms into assurance for those who respond, and how God brings peace instead of pressure when alignment is chosen. This message is not meant to leave you anxious. It is meant to position you. The window is still open. The choice is still yours. And what you do next still matters. A warning does not exist to end a story. It exists to redirect it. When God issues a warning, He is not announcing defeat. He is offering a turning point. This is where many people misunderstand the heart of God. They hear urgency and assume rejection. They feel pressure and assume loss. But the truth is far more hopeful. Warnings are invitations to victory when they are answered correctly. They are doors, not walls. Turning a warning into victory begins with immediate obedience. Not dramatic obedience. Not perfect obedience. Immediate obedience. The moment you respond, something shifts. Even if circumstances look the same, alignment changes instantly. Heaven responds to direction before it responds to results. The moment you say yes, internally and externally, you step back into flow, and flow restores momentum faster than effort ever could. Many people believe they have waited too long, that they have already missed it, that the moment is gone. But the presence of this message proves otherwise. God does not warn after finality. He warns before it. If the door were already sealed, there would be no reason for urgency. The urgency exists because response is still possible. Victory is still accessible. Alignment can still be restored. One of the most powerful truths about God is that He responds instantly to genuine repentance and obedience. He does not require you to fix the past before moving forward. He requires you to align now. The past loses authority the moment alignment returns. This is why delayed obedience, when corrected in time, still carries weight. God redeems moments quickly when hearts respond sincerely. When you respond, peace follows. Not relief from responsibility, but peace and direction. Peace is the confirmation that alignment has been restored. Pressure lifts. Confusion quiets. You may still face challenges, but they no longer feel chaotic. There is a sense of being carried rather than pushed. That is the sign that the warning has done its job. Victory also comes through humility. Humility says, I missed it before, but I will not miss it now. God responds powerfully to humility because humility removes resistance. Resistance blocks flow. Humility opens it. You do not need to explain yourself to God. You need to respond. He already understands your hesitation. What he is watching now is your willingness. Another key to turning the warning into victory is refusing to dwell on fear. Fear looks backward and imagines loss. Faith looks forward and expects restoration. The enemy wants you focused on what could be withdrawn. God wants you focused on what can still be released. Where you focus determines how you move. Fear freezes. Faith advances. God is not standing over you waiting for you to fail. He is watching for the moment you choose alignment so he can release what he prepared. This is why assurance follows obedience so quickly. God does not withhold peace from those who respond. He floods them with it. Peace is not a reward. It is confirmation. Victory also involves trust in God's character. Trust says, even if I do not understand everything, I believe you are good. But belief changes posture. It softens the heart. It removes the need to control outcomes. When control is released, guidance increases. God guides those who trust him enough to move without full visibility. This is also where gratitude becomes powerful. Gratitude is not just thankfulness for what you have received. It is acknowledgement of what God is doing now. When you thank God in advance, you align your heart with expectation rather than fear. Expectation accelerates manifestation. Fear delays it. Understand this clearly. God does not desire to withdraw blessings. He desires to release them. Withdrawal is not his preference. It is the consequence of misalignment. Alignment is always the shortest path to victory, and alignment is always available until the moment closes completely. Right now, alignment is still possible. As you respond, you may feel a renewed sense of hope rising. That hope is not emotional, it is spiritual. It is the signal that alignment is forming. Where alignment forms, victory follows. Not always instantly in appearance, but immediately in motion. Heaven begins moving again. Do not allow shame to steal this moment. Shame says, you should have known better. God says, respond now. Shame looks backward. God looks forward. Victory belongs to those who move forward, not those who replay the past. This warning is not meant to leave you anxious. It is meant to leave you assured. Assured that God sees you. Assured that he cares enough to warn. Assured that obedience still changes outcomes. Assured that peace is available when you respond. In the final part, everything will come together. The warning, the urgency, the blessing, and the assurance will align into one clear truth. God's desire is not to withdraw, but to bless. And those who respond now will step into that blessing with confidence, peace, and renewed strength. This is the moment where everything comes together, not in fear, but in assurance. From the beginning of this message, urgency has been present, not to pressure you, but to awaken you. And now, as we reach the closing of this word, the tone shifts into clarity, peace, and divine confirmation. God's desire has never been to withdraw from you. His desire has always been to bless you, protect you, and lead you forward in alignment. The warning was not the end of the message. It was the beginning of restoration. What God had been watching throughout this entire process is not perfection, but response. He hath been watching whether you recognize his voice, whether you honor his timing, and whether you trust his heart. And if you are still here, still listening, still reflecting, that alone reveals something powerful. Your heart is open. Openness is the soil where blessings take root. Both hearts miss moments. Open hearts receive instruction and move. The assurance you need to hear now is this: God is not standing against you. Heaven is not disappointed in you. This message was not sent to condemn, but to correct course before loss occurred. Gregson is love in action. It is God stepping in before consequences finalize. And when correction is received, peace always follows. Peace does not mean everything suddenly looks perfect. Peace means you know you are aligned again. Peace means the inner resistance quiets. Peace means confusion no longer dominates your thoughts. Peace is heaven's confirmation that you are back in step, and that peace is available to you right now as you choose response over delay, trust over fear, obedience over comfort. There is also assurance in knowing that God restores quickly. He does not hold past hesitation over your head when you respond sincerely. The moment alignment returns, momentum begins rebuilding. Sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but always faithfully. God does not move backward to punish. He moves forward to redeem. You may still be walking through uncertainty, but uncertainty does not cancel blessing. Misalignment does. And alignment has been the invitation throughout this entire message. Alignment is not complicated. It is a heart posture that says, I will move when you say move. That posture opens doors no amount of striving ever could. This is also where gratitude becomes a powerful seal. Thank God, not just for what has already happened, but for what He is doing now. Gratitude locks in alignment. It shifts your focus from what could have been lost to what is being restored. Gratitude positions you to receive without fear. As you move forward from this moment, do not carry anxiety with you. Anxiety belongs to uncertainty. Alignment produces confidence. Confidence does not mean you know every step. It means you trust the one leading you. That trust is what keeps blessings flowing long after moments like this pass. Remember this clearly. God watches moments not to trap you, but to teach you how to move with Him. This moment has been a lesson in timing, trust, and response. And lessons learned become protection in future seasons. You will recognize divine windows faster now. You will respond with greater confidence next time. This message has strengthened your discernment. Now, receive this assurance. The blessing God desires to release is not fragile. It does not disappear easily. It requires alignment, yes, but alignment is something you can choose again and again. God is patient, purposeful, and deeply invested in your growth. His plans for you are still good. His intentions toward you are still filled with hope. As you step away from this message, do so with peace, not pressure. Let clarity guide you. Let trust steady you. Let obedience become your natural response rather than a fearful decision. Heaven is not rushing you now. It is reassuring you. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are aware. And awareness, when followed by response, leads to blessing. Type I walk in alignment in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 384 is now activated. As this message settles and alignment is restored, I am speaking now to those who feel the call to help carry this light further. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are sowing into a river God is using to reach souls standing at decisive moments just like this one. The Lord is declaring, those who release into my work will never lack my supply. I am calling you personally to act, because obedience and giving is also alignment. This mission is about spreading God's voice, not a platform, and your seed multiplies that reach. Respond now without delay. Use the PayPal donation link in the description or the PayPal QR code on the screen, and as you give, may God open the heavens over you and bless your obedience abundantly.